Australia is in the middle of building one of the most ambitious transport links in its history. A freight-only railway, almost 1,600 kilometers long, connecting Melbourne to Brisbane. Instead of following the crowded coastline, this line heads inland through farms, hills, and floodplains, creating a direct backbone for goods to move up and down the east of the country. It is not about fast passenger trains or tourism. It is designed purely for moving freight. The trains planned for this corridor will be close to 2 kilometers long, with containers stacked too high. Each one could haul as much cargo as more than 100 large trucks. On the eastern seaboard, where most Australians live, freight volumes are expected to roughly double by around 2030 to about 8 billion tons a year. Today, most of that moves on the road network. Roughly 3/4 of East Coast freight rides on trucks, creating an almost continuous line of heavy vehicles along major highways. That dependence has clear downsides. Large trucks make up a small share of total traffic, but feature heavily in serious crashes. They roll straight into cities to make deliveries, adding to congestion. And a fully loaded multi-trailer truck can batter the road surface far more than cars, leaving governments with maintenance bills that taxpayers ultimately fund. Rail should be a strong alternative. It is safer, more energy efficient, and well-suited to bulk loads. The problem is that the current rail route between Melbourne and Brisbane is simply not competitive. It detours along the coast, squeezes through Sydney, and runs on old infrastructure never designed for fast, high-capacity freight. Around Sydney, freight trains are pushed behind commuter services and must obey curfews during the morning and evening peaks. Add slow, winding sections of track, and a freight train can take more than 32 hours to make the journey. For many businesses, a long-haul truck is just as fast, more predictable, and easier to schedule. As a result, rail's share of the East Coast freight market has been falling even as total demand grows. Without a change, the next decade would bring more trucks, more crashes, more congestion, and mounting road costs. The Inland Rail project is meant to break that pattern, a purpose-built freight corridor that bypasses bottlenecks, straightens the route, and gives trains a real shot at matching or beating road transit times. The idea itself is not new. A direct inland route between Melbourne and Brisbane was proposed more than a century ago and has reappeared in various studies, defense plans, and political promises ever since. From the 1990s onward, as freight volumes climbed, industry groups pushed harder, and governments ordered fresh reports. For decades, nothing happened beyond the planning stage. Momentum finally shifted in the 2010s, when a full feasibility study found that an inland route would be commercially viable and nationally significant. A few years later, the federal government committed billions of dollars and put the National Rail Corporation in charge of delivery. Construction began in 2018, and the first completed segment in New South Wales is already carrying freight, offering a small preview of how the finished system might operate. So what exactly is being built? Roughly 1,000 kilometers of existing track will be upgraded, bridges raised, tunnels modified, and rails strengthened so that long, heavy trains with double-stacked containers can pass through. The remaining 600 kilometers will be entirely new line laid across farms and plains and skirting the foothills of mountain ranges to connect everything into a single corridor. When it is fully operational, the goal is to move freight between Melbourne and Brisbane in under 24 hours, with reliable services that can compete directly with road transport. For regional towns along the way, this is more than a line that trains pass over. Places like Parks in central New South Wales are being reshaped into logistics hubs, with new terminals and warehouses. Construction is expected to create thousands of jobs for engineers, operators, contractors, and local suppliers. And once the line is running, ongoing work in maintenance and terminal operations should keep bringing investment into those communities. Supporters argue that the benefits go beyond local jobs. By giving farmers, miners, and manufacturers a faster, more reliable path to ports, inland rail could make Australian exports more competitive and add billions of dollars to the economy over coming decades. But the project has also been overshadowed by serious problems. The original price tag, pitched at around $8.4 billion, has ballooned to estimates above $30 billion, making it one of the most expensive infrastructure efforts in the country. Timelines have slipped badly as well. What was once talked about as a mid-2020s completion is now more likely to stretch toward the end of this decade for the full Melbourne-Brisbane link. Route choices have triggered resistance, too. In Queensland, the planned line across a major floodplain has locals worried that embankments and raised track could change natural water flows and worsen flooding. Some landholders say the alignment will slice through their properties and disrupt their businesses. In New South Wales, Indigenous groups have raised alarms about impacts on culturally significant landscapes, arguing that consultation has been inadequate and that heritage is at risk. In response, the federal government has reshaped the way the project is managed and created a dedicated entity to oversee delivery, promising tighter control over spending and stronger engagement with affected communities. Even so, inland rail now sits in an uneasy place. Partly built, heavily over budget, delayed, and still politically contentious. Yet the core question remains: can a direct inland freight railway carriage really relieve pressure on roads, strengthen regional economies, and move goods more safely and efficiently between Australia's biggest eastern cities? Or will the spiraling costs and ongoing disputes outweigh the benefits? Let me know where you land on that debate in the comments, and whether you think this mammoth rail project is worth the billions being spent. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.